What is up, friends? Thought of the day number 12. Can you regulate zone 2 by using nose breathing? It's what I'm going to dive into. Just got in the car, and the dashboard says 35.5 degrees here in Switzerland. Granted, the car was in the sun, but still, I've never seen 35.5 on the car. So I just thought I would say that. If I start just sweating profusely during my maybe I can open the windows, but then the sound is shit. So maybe I'll just wait for the cold air to come in with the AC. So if I start sweating profusely or faint during this start of the day, it is because of the heat. We're not accustomed to this kind of temperatures here in Switzerland. I'm not too bothered by the heat usually, but 35 is 35 Celsius. So, can you regulate zone 2 by breathing through your nose? I think the short answer is yes. You can definitely use that as a rough estimation of zone 2 intensity. We know that zone 2 is bound at the upper level by your first threshold, whether that's lactate or ventilatory. That can only currently be measured via those physiological parameters. They can roughly estimate, obviously, the intensity that is equivalent to your zone 2. Usually, what I like to recommend nowadays is a conversational pace. You can hold a conversation. If you're at like middle of zone 2, you should be able to hold a conversation without the person, say you're on the phone, without the other person knowing that you're exercising. It should be that easy. Obviously, if you're at the top end, you might have a little bit more of breathing going on. You should still be able to do long sentences and hold an easy conversation. Shouldn't have to catch your breath every 3 words. Then you're definitely out of that. Now, nose breathing is interesting. There's many benefits taunted when it comes to nose breathing as such. I do think it's a valuable tool to maybe control your breathing a little bit better than what some person might do just using their mouth. It forces you to be aware of what you're doing with your breathing. It does restrict the flux of air in and out of your body, simply given that the nasal canal is much smaller than the other option. So that is, a limitation to consider. Now, obviously, if you're below your first lactate/ventilatory threshold, and no, those are not the exact same, but they should be fairly close together in most cases. If you're below, then your rate of breathing is going to be pretty slow as well. And the volume of air you have to move in and out of the body will be pretty low as well, simply because you're not consuming a ton of oxygen at that point. And more importantly, the CO2 you're producing is pretty low. The amount of CO2 you're producing is very low. CO2 being the driver of ventilation, at least the first driver of ventilation. Your carbonic drive, if we may call it that way, is or precedes the hypoxic drive. So you're forced to breathe more because CO2 accumulates before you're forced to breathe more because you don't have enough O2 in your circulation, which almost never happens unless you're a very high athlete or you have, pulmonary dysfunction issues or health issues of some kind that prevents proper loading of oxygen onto the hemoglobin, into the blood, and downstream to the muscles. So back to the original question, nose breathing for zone 2 control. To some extent, yes, but again, you can also force yourself to breathe through your nose at higher intensities. It's really not comfortable, and at that point, I don't see the point. A lot of people talk about nitric oxide release when nose breathing. One important thing that I learned from Evan Picon, and you can go check out the most recent interview I did with him on the podcast if you want to learn more, because he can probably explain it a lot better than I will here. Essentially, the nitric oxide that is released when you breathe through your nose does not go into your circulation. So even though, yes, nitric oxide, some form of nitric oxide in your circulation does have a positive impact on vasodilation. Overtaking a tractor here. even though nitric oxide does have that positive effect on vasodilation in your circulation, the nitric oxide released when breathe through your nose doesn't go into your circulation. So it's correct to say that there's NO produced when you breathe through your nose. It's not correct to say that it then has an impact on or positive impact on vasodilation, because it's not the same molecule and it's not in the same place. Again, go check out the podcast I did with Evan if you wanted to know more about that. So you can definitely push nasal breathing too far, in my opinion, and you can very well control your rate and volume of breathing while breathing through your nose. The biggest impact from my experience and having the VO2 Master as direct feedback on this is hypoventilating at any intensities will drive obviously CO2 retention or increase CO2 retention, and as such shift the oxygen dissociation curve to the right, if I'm not mistaken. And so hemoglobin is less sticky, oxygen comes off more easily, and you have better offloading at the muscle. And if you look at the fraction of expired oxygen on the VO2 master, for example, that value will come down, which means that out of 21-ish% of air that you breathe in, you extract more per breath to be more efficient with oxygen. And we know that more oxygen means saturated myoglobin is going to preferentially facilitate the transport and utilization of fats. And we always have an advantage of doing that most of the time, at least. So breathing slower, breathing less, that's always a good idea. Through your nose, you can, but not necessarily. So it's a good ballpark estimation of your zone 2 intensity. But again, if you just push yourself to the limit, breathing through your nose, and you say, but I'm breathing through my nose, is it still zone 2? No, it's probably not zone 2. So that's how I'd frame it. Yes, but I think that's it. I think that's it for today. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below. Always happy to read you guys. Um, Leave a like if you enjoyed the content. Sign up because it's free and you can always change your mind. And I'll see you in the next thought of the day. Take care.